So, I've had a question on my mind for a while now. Is it possible to do fluid simulations with Cinema's new particle system? My first thought was maybe it's possible with the new particle nodes. But before I went on this journey, I had to contact an expert. And I of course contacted the Cinema Nodes wizard, Dominic Rugli. So I asked Dominic, is it possible to do flip fluid concepts inside of Cinema? And he wrote back that it's possible in theory, but because the Cinema Node system runs on the CPU, the performance would be super bad and it would run really slow. But of course that didn't discourage me. I had a goal and I just went for it. So I jumped on the computer and I tried to make the best fluid sim I could using nodes. But after 2 days of getting nowhere, I had barely anything to show and I had to give up on this project because it simply was just too hard to do. So I scrapped the nodes idea and I went back to basics. I fired up Cinema and I played around with all the different particle modifiers. I tried out all the different combinations of settings just to see how the particle sim would behave. I even tried setting the particle substeps to 1000, but that instantly just crashed Cinema. So yeah, that was no good. But I'm glad to say that I finally found the right settings to make a fluid sim with the new particles in Cinema. So a quick disclaimer before we go on. This is definitely not a real flip sim. For that you'll need a plugin or a dedicated program like Houdini, but this technique comes pretty damn close. Before we begin, I've made these previews that show how each setting affects the behavior of the simulation. Okay, so for this tutorial, we're going to recreate this scene here. And I think it's a good example on how to get some really nice looking liquid in a pretty simple scene. So let's just close this. And as you can see, I've already copied over all of the lights and the camera and also the background and this cube here. So I'm just going to hide the background for now. Yeah. Let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a basic emitter. And this basic emitter here, we are just going to go to rotation and we will just put it to -90. Then we'll go into the emission tab, set it to 5 by 5 centimeters. And this is the scale we're working at in this specific scenario. And I have to say that 5 by 5 centimeters is a good scale to get the right kind of movement. So I'm just going to go down here to the constant and I'll just set it to 1000. And then we're just going to go to our cube, right click, go to simulation tags, collider, and we will take off the bounce and set the friction to 25. And I want the friction to be kind of high so the liquid actually sticks and it doesn't just glide off. Then to actually make the collider work with our particle group here, we're going to go to the modifiers up here and we'll use a collide. And we will also just put it underneath our particle group. Then I'm just going to set collision iterations to 5. I'm going to pull down my bounce to 0 and then I'm just going to make a margin of 0.5 because when we actually mesh this, it's going to be a little bit bigger than our actual simulation. Let's press play here and we can see we have particles, but these particles are not looking that great. And I'm actually gonna go in here to my emitter. There we are, under properties, under color, and then I'll just change it to black. So it's a bit easier to see. So then we're going to make two other forces here. We're going to make a gravity and we're going to make a friction. And there's always friction in the simulation. So let's set this to 25 and 15. And these numbers are just found out by messing around with it. And these numbers just worked for me. So then we have the gravity. That's it. We shouldn't move that at all. And let's just see what happens now. So now we have some more gravity and we have some friction, and you can see we have particles bouncing. All right, so now the party trick comes. We're going to make a flux modifier. And this flux modifier, I'm just gonna put in after our gravity. Let me just pull it up a bit here. Inside of this flux modifier, I'm first of all going to set some basic settings. And as I showed before in the reference sheet, these basic settings are really good to start off with. So let's just set everything to 10 here. Also the velocity alignment. And let's set our maximum speed to 1,000 centimeters, because that's kind of how far our acceleration on our gravity also is. So that should harmonize nicely together. Then our cohesion radius, set it to 10. Then our separation, we can just keep it at 2.5. Set our velocity alignment to a radius of 10. And that should be it for our basic settings. Let's test it out. All right, so as you can see here, it's a bit too wild, and that's definitely not what we're going for here. So how do we fix this problem? Well, we need to press Ctrl D and go to our project settings here. We can navigate to our simulation, and in our simulation here, we can navigate to the particles tab if you haven't already done that. Then you can see the substeps, and they are only at 1. And that is pretty low. That is actually the lowest you can get. So as I showed before in the render tests, a substep size of 32 is pretty good. You can bring it lower to 24 or 20 or even lower, but 32 is what I've found to work the best. So let's play it again. And as you can see, we actually got some really nice particles now. And if you can see them, then you can go to the particle group here and turn up the size a bit, something like this. Yeah, now you can see it's a bit nicer to look at. And as we can see, we have some particles going out here. They're falling off, and we have a pretty nice sticky simulation. All right, so let's change up some things here. First of all, I'm just going to give it a rate of 5,000 particles. So let's play it again, and let's see here. We have a bigger size of our stream, and we also have more particles going down here on the side. Awesome. And as you can see, yeah, it's looking pretty good. So before we go further, I actually want to mesh this now. The way we're going to mesh our particles is a bit counterintuitive. So I am going to make a matrix, and the reason why is so we can manipulate our particles afterwards. And I'm going to show you how to do that in a little bit. But first of all, I'm just going to set this matrix to object mode, pull in our particle group here. Let's just press play, and you can see we have some big boxes here. I'm just going to set them to 0.1 in the transform tab. Then I'm just going to hide my particles here, and that's a bit better to look at. So the reason why I do this is so I can actually go and take a bulge or something like that, and then I can just size it down a bit, and I can actually start, if I put it underneath my matrix here, I can actually start to deform my particles. And this is super, super cool, because then we can get these kind of droplet shapes here. And that is actually how you control this effect here. So it isn't a full flip sim, but you can get super far with just using deformers on your particles. All right, so let's delete this bulge again. Let's go and take a volume builder. Let's go and take a volume measure. put the builder inside of the measure, and inside of our volume builder here, we're just gonna pull in our matrix. Let's set the voxel size to 1. Let's set our radius down here to 3 centimeters. And yeah, now we have this. So then I'm just going to make a smooth here. I'm going to set the voxel distance to 1, and I'm going to set the iterations to 2. Then I'm going to make a dilate and erode on top of it. I'm going to set the offset to -1, and the iterations should just stay at 1. So now we have this look. Cool. And you can see that we're kind of starting to get some really nice liquid here. So I'm just going to pull down our voxel size again to 0.7, I think, just to get a little bit more out of it. And then I'm actually going to make a smoothing modifier here, put it as a second child of our volume measure. And then I'm going to pull down the stiffness, going to set the iterations to 50. And there we have a much smoother result. And there's actually also another way that you can control your meshing here. So you can go up here to your volume measure, and then you can also pull in the voxel range threshold to either contract it or expand it. All right, cool. So let's actually go and let's see what it does here. So it kind of just pulls down, and it's looking pretty good, I would say. But we can make it look even better. So I'm going to take a bulge, gonna set it to 50 by 50 by 100 in the Y. Then I'm gonna pull it underneath my matrix here, and I'm gonna set the strength to -40, something like that. And then you can also do the fillet just to smooth out the transition here. Then I'm going to duplicate it, pull it down here, do kind of something a little bit more strength here. I think that's good. Maybe a bit in the height. Then I'm just going to pull it down again, something like this. All right. So now I actually have this sim where we are controlling our particles and how they're actually behaving. And it's a pretty easy way to control your fluids. This is kind of the look we're having now, but I think we're still missing something. And that is here in our flock. So I think I'm just going to give it 35 in the cohesion strength. And then in our velocity alignment strength, I'm going to give it 55. And this is really going to make our liquid look a lot better. So as you can see here, it really gets thick and viscous, and it's looking so much better. It makes these bends here. And I would actually like to make the bends a little bit more obvious. So I'm actually just going to right click on my basic emitter, go to animation tags, vibrate, turn on regular pulse, turn on enable rotation, zero this out, and then give it some amplitude here, something like 15. And then I can see, if I just turn off my measure here, I can see that we're doing it in the C direction. So just turn it around to plus 90, I think. And let's see what it does. So we are now getting all of these swirls here, and it's looking pretty nice. And the only thing I would do is just pull this in a little bit further. So I'll just take my emitter and just push it 5 centimeters here. And let's see if it made a difference. I'm getting a pretty good look here on it, but I feel like it could spread out a little bit more. It's kind of staying inside of this core here. So let me just go to my separation, set it to 15. Let's see how that looks. And I actually also have the camera set up here, so we can just look at it from here. And yeah, it's looking pretty awesome actually. Super, super nice. And we get this droop that is driven down the side, and then it's getting catched by this bulge. And I think I could actually just move this up a bit. Yeah, right now I'm just looking at where it actually interacts with the surface here. And maybe we could just do something that should be good. Then I'm just gonna turn on all of my lights here. And I've also prepared some materials for it. So let's go put a material on our volume measure over here. And yeah, I think that's it. So let's just press render and see what we have done. All right, cool. So one thing I just need to do is that I need to link up my lighting here. Boom. That should be it. So let's press render and you guys can see how it looks. All right, so as you can see here, you can actually get some pretty nice looking fluid sims out of Cinema. One thing I maybe would do here is just maybe hide the emission point up here a bit better. But you know, that's small things that you can pretty easy adjust. All right, so I hope that you liked the video. This was a really fun one to really dive into how this particle system actually works. And I also hope that you will follow the channel because I'm going to do more videos like this one. So stay tuned for that. But I only have one thing left to say, and that is go out there, make some awesome renders, and I'll see you back here on the channel for some more cinema magic. Goodbye.